Okay, good day, students. Miss Thomas here again. We're continuing with communication, the topic communication, but today we're going to talk about regulating the mass media. When you hear the term regulating, what comes to mind? Keeping some control or boundaries. So the mass media has some boundaries to operate within. And who does that control? Who controls the mass media? Who controls what they could say and can't say? There are different bodies that do it. The government, of course, is a major contributor to making those boundaries and regulating the mass media, as well as other media organizations. However, before we go into regulating of the mass media, there are some terms that you must know that is important for this topic. Have you ever heard of the term freedom of expression? Freedom of expression is the right to express oneself freely in speech or writing without violating any existing law. So most of us say we have freedom to express. All of us, that is one of our basic rights, actually, freedom of expression. But we must express ourselves within the confines of the law. Then you have freedom of the press. That is the right of the press to gather and publish or broadcast information, ideas, or opinions freely without government interference or prior censorship. So the press also has freedom, but of course they must do that also within the confines of the law. An important term is called libel. Libel is a published statement which is usually untrue, damaging to a person's reputation or character. The intention really is to harm or for persons to form a bad opinion about a person or a group. So libel is any published written statement that is untrue. Slander, on the other hand, is any spoken words that are untrue about another person, and the intention is the same, to harm the person or to allow persons to think negatively or form negative opinions about the person who is being slandered on. So slander is spoken untruths, and libel is written untruth. Anything that is published or printed that is untrue would be considered libel. And slander would be any spoken word that is considered untrue, that is untrue, that is damaging, that is meant to cause damage, would be called slander. So know the difference between those two, please. Then another word that you should know is censorship. Censorship is the official control or suppressing of books, letters, news, film, movies, movies, television shows, mostly on the grounds of immorality, mainly, or if it will cause persons to behave violent or act in violence against, or direct violence towards the government or to persons. Censorship. So there are censorship bodies that control the kinds of information that we hear. I will get into that a little more. So the mass media is very important to society, and of course sometimes the mass media can abuse their freedom. They can abuse their freedom of expression. So we have the government and of course professional media organizations that seek to regulate or control them or make them act within boundaries, and that is mainly to protect privacy and the reputation of persons, and also to protect the security of state and to promote good moral values. So there's a reason why the media has to be regulated. They just can't put out anything they feel. They must act within the confines of the law and of course act in the benefit of their general listenership. These are some of the ways that the government can regulate the media. They have licensing is one of the ways that the government can regulate the media. The government, before any organization can set up a radio station or a television station or a newspaper, they must get a license from the government, right? No media house, no media agency can operate without permission or licensing from the government. And again, we'll come back to censorship boards. So another form of regulating the media is having censorship boards. These are boards, a group of persons who would examine and remove parts of books or parts of films. Sometimes you hear some, if there's profanity in any film or radio program, and you'll hear it beeped out. That is censorship. And again, that is on the grounds of immorality, because you don't want people just using profanity any which way, meaning like all willy-nilly. I don't want to use the term willy-nilly, but you don't want people using profanity freely. Okay, and then even if they do, they mustn't see it broadcasted freely for especially for our impressionable minds, young children who might think, oh, so this is normal. If I could see it on television, it's been allowed on television, then I could do it too. No. So that's why we have censorship boards who would determine what is appropriate for a certain age. You all know that there are many movies that are rated PG, meaning parental guidance is necessary, or rated R, meaning, rated R means restricted to a certain, audience group, but be 16 and over, 18 and over. So who determines what movie or what show should be 13 plus or 16 plus? It would be censorship boards who determine these things. Even some of your video games have a rating on them. I mean, some are for all audiences, general audiences. Some are strictly for adults. Some are 18 plus or 16 plus, right? So I think you should understand what censorship means. Sometimes they can ban a whole song. Some songs I know of songs in my lifetime that have been completely banned. Censorship board will do that, right? So another way that the government can control or regulate the mass media is having broadcasting commissions. These are established to have media houses use a general code of conduct which would govern how they conduct their affairs, how they do their functions, and it's like a watchdog for the media. So if the media is doing anything wrong, the Broadcasting Commission should come and regulate them, either sometimes even making them lose their license, or ensuring that they are encourage them to do the right thing where their freedom of expression is concerned. And the last point that the government can do in regulating the mass media is to prohibit the transmission of material deemed profane, indecent, or information that would incite violence against anyone. So legislation, the government can enact legislation that would prevent the transmission of information like that. Anything that will incite violence, anything that is considered indecent or profane, right? And the government also can, if they issued you with a license, they can revoke your license. So you could lose your license if you violate any one of those standards that they have set out of what is acceptable programming. And of course, media houses have their own editing departments that would edit what should be printed on a newspaper, what should be broadcasted on news, or what programs would be deemed acceptable. Sometimes you see some programming will tell you, parental guidance is necessary for this following program, or it is completely unsuitable for young children. All that is part of regulating the mass media, keeping a control over the mass media, making sure that they have boundaries to operate within. So, let me just recap some of the measures that governments can use. They can have licensing, where they issue license to persons who are interested in owning any media agency. There are censorship boards that control what the content of any information that you're consuming. Broadcasting commissions, who are like the watchdogs to ensure that media houses, media agencies do what they're supposed to. And of course, legislation that the government can pass, laws that of course would ensure that media houses operate in the best interest of their listenership. That's me and you. Okay, so again, we spoke about regulating the mass media. They can't just operate anyhow they want. They must operate within the confines of the law. Okay, so that's it for today. I want to wish you a wonderful day, and until I see you in the next videos, please remember to like, subscribe,